Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Division of Politics and Economics student panel. Thank you guys for all being here and being live at this event. Really, we wanted to hold this student panel just to make sure that for those of you who are in the academic, the admission funnel right here, or looking to potentially start graduate school, we want to just give you some insight on what it is to be a student in the classroom. And thankfully, I've been able to pull three of our most brilliant students within the division. I work with a lot of students within admissions to, of course, help them get into the class and enroll and whatnot. And I've had experience with all three of the panelists that you see here today. And so just wanted to very quickly thank all of you guys for joining us today. By the way, my name is Jeremy McWells. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions for the Division of Politics and Economics, and obviously very honored to be here. So welcome, and we're going to just start off with just introducing the panel. So I'm going to go ahead and start here with my right. So if you want to just go ahead, if you all just want to state your name, the amount of time you've been into the program, and what exact program you are in at this current moment, and we'll go ahead and get started after that.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jama. I'm honored to be here. Thanks, Jeremy.
Absolutely.
So I'm an international studies student. This is my second semester, first year, so I'm a newbie here. I'm in a PhD program, and I'm concentrating in computational analytics and world politics. So I'm glad to be here.
Excellent.
Hi guys, my name is Min Pham. I'm in my third year economics. My focus is on behavioral economics. And thank you, Jeremy, for inviting me.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Jordan Uloa. Thanks for the invite, Jeremy. I am a current master's student in the politics program, and I am in my first year, second semester as well. Working on research on voting rights right now and voter participation.
Excellent. So as you can see, we have representation from economics, politics, and government, and also international studies. So we just want to make sure that the representation was correct. So for any of you who are interested in division itself, you have some stories to hear from each one of the departments. I really want to start from the beginning, you guys. So I know that we all met during your first inquiry within the admission process. And so I just want to first go to the beginning on how did you hear about CGU? Was it through maybe a family friend? Was it online? Was it through any type of other search? So I'll go ahead and start with Jama because I know your story is really unique. So I'll just go ahead and start with you. How did you hear about Claremont Graduate University?
Yeah, my story is pretty interesting, I would say, because I'm coming from Kyrgyzstan, which is a former Soviet Union country,
Right.
and I'm the second student in this particular university from my country, so it's pretty rare. I studied in American University of Central Asia back home, so it's an American institution, American college, and I had a professor. He is American, and literally I got to hear about CGU from my professor, which was pretty interesting.
Wow.
And I don't think I would ever hear about CGU
Right.
in any other way because the odds are pretty. Chances are pretty small.
Right.
So that was interesting, and I got interested in the program. So I went on the website. It was just like a basic research, and then I took a look at the program because I did business for my undergrad.
Okay.
And so I jumped straight from my undergrad to a PhD.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and so far it's been great. I like I just went to the website. It looked pretty interesting. The program looked interesting. The staff was very helpful, and in the admission process.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Min, how about you? How did you come across CGU?
My story is very interesting. So I applied 3 years ago in 2016, and my advisor, undergrad, he was a former student here in CGU, and he was probably the most brilliant, very intelligent person I've ever met in my life. And I told him, hey, where did you get your PhD from? And I want to do exactly the same as you.
Wow.
And I applied and I got in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jordan, what about you?
Mine is less interesting. So I am actually local to the area. I went to school up in Northern California. I've known about the Claremont colleges since I went to high school, which was just down the street in Laverne. I didn't know much about CGU, but I did my research before applying, and I had applied to several different public policy degrees, actually, and that's actually what I applied before I switched over into politics. I did my research on the professors and on the school, saw, what the class size was, and just loved the fact that I would be in such a small environment I'd be able to really have teachers at my disposal. I'd be able to just walk into people's offices, and that's really what the selling point was for me. And and I applied and got in, and here we are.
And the rest is history.
Yes, sir.
So I know I remember my time searching for schools for graduate institutions. I think there's a difference of what you see on the website and then when you get here, what the first experience is. If it's a staff, like you mentioned, Jama, or if it's, you've known about it for a long time and, but you're finally on ground. What were some first impressions that you picked up from just your experience, if it was through a campus visit, an event? How did you feel about the space, the small classroom sizes? Just what were your thoughts during that process, your first initial thoughts?
So for sure, the stuff that I read on the website, it matched with the reality, but it exceeded my expectations.
Wow.
First thing, I was doing the email correspondence with you,
That's right.
and you're almost like the first person I got to know from CGU.
Right.
And when I actually got to see you in person, it's like, oh, this is how Jeremy looks like in life.
Yeah.
And he's a pretty enthusiastic person, very open. So that was pretty cool. And then the student orientation was very interesting too. We got to hear a lot about the university, the coursework, possible extensions and stuff. So that was very helpful, and I thought I could actually focus more on research. And I realized that the small classroom is actually very beneficial. So you get a personalized approach, and the fact that pretty much every faculty member knows your name, it was very surprising from the beginning, because you actually knew my name. I was like, no way, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So I would say, my expectations were exceeded at this point.
Excellent. Man, since you came in a few years back, and we didn't meet until fairly recent within the year. How was your initial experience of what you heard or what you read on the website or for your mentor, and then when you first got here?
Absolutely. So Paige was actually my
Paige, got it. Okay.
Was a recruiter at the time, and I was talking to her over the phone a couple of times, and she was so helpful. And she was one of the key factors that made me actually decide to come here, because I applied to 9 different schools, and I got in all of them.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, so should I now? The turning point is like, which school should I go? So when I get to CGU, it's like, wow, everything is so small here, but now I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Because all professors know you. When you do research and everything, you get a direct, research relationship with your professor.
That's
and
right.
The best thing that you can ever ask for.
And I would imagine for both of you all who currently getting started on research and doing research and have done research, that connection that you make with faculty is absolutely important.
The best.
Jordan, what about you?
You were my liaison, if you will, when I was applying. So, you were really attentive, answered all my questions and everything like that. I took a tour with you, met a few people in the program, and really kind of got a feel for how close in proximity all of the different faculty members were. And I started to kind of get the sense that they worked together and collaborated on a lot of different things. And then when I actually started the program with the orientation, you start to hear about all the different types of research that everyone's doing in the faculty, what their focuses are and everything like that. And you start to realize that they really do commingle and do a lot of transdisciplinary stuff, which is it exceeded my expectations, because, typically at the larger research-based universities, you have professors that are focusing on one specific thing. They do collaborate, but, just having the ability to be able to walk into a professor's office, and if they can't answer your question, have them literally walk down the hall with you to another professor that can then go and answer your question or get you going at least in the right direction, is something that, I really just couldn't speak to the benefits of.
Well, this makes me happy that, from what you guys read on the website or heard through an admission representative, is definitely what you guys are experiencing right now. So that makes me really happy. And I did not pay Jordan or Jama to say that. I just want to let that be known right now. I want to move on to the Claremont Consortium and its resources, right? Because not a lot of people understand really the correlation between CGU and the consortium, right? The idea that you are coming to CGU and you are a student at CGU, however, you have access to Scripps College, Pomona, McKenna, their events, their facilities, their dining halls, what have you. Have you guys had any experience as of yet, going to something as simple as just going to another dining hall or going to one of the gyms or going to an event to socialize or to network? And I'll leave this open, has anyone had that experience as of yet?
Well, first of all, when I came here, I arrived through International Place, which is the like an international organization that
And
coordinates.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so they were organizing an orientation for all international students to make sure that we're all settled. We know like what are the requirements to go through visa process and
Right.
everything, every
Right.
single step to make sure we're comfortable. So that was very helpful.
Yeah.
That was one of the first days when I got here. And then I was placed in a host family.
Wow.
And right before I moved in the apartment. So I got to know like some local community in here, did
Yeah.
some volunteering. It was a pretty good introduction, especially for, I think it's important for international students to make sure you feel comfortable in the local community.
100%.
And that was a lovely community. It was a lovely introduction.
Great.
And afterwards, I'm still in touch with an international place.
Oh, that's nice,
I want
yeah.
to go ahead and say that we're having a international festival on April 13th.
That's right.
So everybody's welcome to join. I'm going to represent my country.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be a cultural booth. It's going to be a lot of fun. There are going to be a
Excellent.
lot of countries. Other than that, I just love walking around the campuses, making sure I see everything because the campus itself, the territory is beautiful,
Yeah.
and they have really nice gym facilities that are free for CGU students.
That's right.
As well as I also attended like a concert at Scripps College
Which
they
concert?
have it was like a piano recital
Okay.
of a like wonderful pianist student. I play piano myself, that's why I'm kind of interested in this stuff. So there's so many things to explore around the colleges.
Yeah. Yeah.
great.
Man, what about you?
So I play competitive soccer in college, and when I first get here, I need to find somewhere I can play.
Yes.
And they do have intramurals around the 7C. So at Pomona Pitzer, there's a CMC, and for all the students, even the 7C student can join and just make a teams play. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, I know that the admissions staff, we got together, and what Jama and Min are referring to, you know, the resources that are here are open for staff, faculty, and students.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. We get to interact with one another. The admission team did put together a intramural basketball team. Don't ask me about the record. We didn't do so hot, but it was really a good time. So not only, you know, from a student standpoint, but from a staff standpoint, it's really awesome to be able to take advantage of that. Jordan, what about you? What is your experience?
I have not taken advantage of the consortium
Okay.
stuff yet. I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
do intramurals for sure.
Okay.
Looking into it, I've just been trying to fit it in with my schedule, and I've been taking on more research this semester, so I didn't have time.
Right, right.
But you know, I've attended one talk over at Claremont McKenna in the politics field, but that's pretty much about all I've taken advantage of through the 7Cs. But I do know that the resources are out there for me.
Great, great. Kind of my final question when it comes to the, you know, this beginning process and the initial, you know, kind of thoughts on Claremont and CGU. I want to talk about the city of Claremont a little bit. Not a whole lot of people know that Claremont is actually a town. You know, we're kind of right out on the outskirts of LA County, and if you've never really been in the downtown area or spend a lot of time here, you would pass it on Foothill Boulevard or the 210 freeway and never even know that you're in the city. So especially for Jama and Min, right? How was your reaction to the city? Because Jordan, you very much so knew about the city, but for Jama and Min, what were your initial thoughts on the city itself, the city of trees and PhDs, Claremont? We'll go ahead and start with Min this time.
The city is there are a lot of trees.
A lot of trees.
A lot of
A lot of
trees.
trees.
Probably one of the best thing. In downtown Claremont, there's a lot of, you know, things are. When I first get here, it's so I'm trying to find, you know, activities to
Yeah.
do and things, and they do have pretty much everything.
Yeah.
They have from bowling to movie theater, frozen yogurt, you know, and a bunch of bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
So that one of the things that, and it's like walking distance from the school too. So like say if I want to have lunch, I just walk 15 minutes to downtown Claremont,
Exactly.
and that's really nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
John, what about you? What are your thoughts? And even the distance of a Claremont to the LA area, right? You know, being able to be in this kind of smaller environment, but still have access to a large metropolis city. What are your thoughts with that?
I think it's a pretty good balance.
Yeah.
If you want to, it's a good balance to make sure you actually focus on your studies so you are not distracted. You're in a pretty small town.
Right.
It's very safe in here. As Min said, there are plenty of things to do in the village.
Right.
It feels like a pretty small space, but there are a lot of activities you can do.
Right.
And on the other hand, you can get out of the town like in half an hour, go to Pasadena or
Yep.
LA and have fun. So yeah, I
Excellent.
think it's a pretty good balance.
I would agree. You guys kind of touched on the admission process, so I won't spend too much time here, but I just wanted to kind of come back around. Did you guys experience any challenges during the admission process? While Jordan and Jama worked with me and then you worked with Paige, was there a challenge there? And then how were you able to overcome it? I'll give an example from where I hear from students a lot, the letters of recommendation. Maybe I haven't been in school for quite some time and maybe my professor has, is no longer there. I can't get in touch with them for some reason. And then, talking to an admission representative and giving you a solution for that problem. Did you guys experience anything like that? And how was that worked out?
Yeah, I mean, during the admissions process, so I kind of came from a different route. I didn't come straight out of undergrad into the master's program. It was kind of like I went out of undergrad and started doing some tech consulting. So I worked out in LA.
Yes.
I lived over on the west side in Santa Monica and worked right there over in the Westwood Village for a Fortune 5 company. And, I loved it there. I loved all my bosses and everything, but I just didn't really feel the passion for what I was doing. And I wasn't getting any younger. So I knew that I wanted to go back to school. I had known for quite some time and I just didn't I saw a perfect opportunity to do so. So I went ahead and took advantage of that. And as far as the letters of recommendation are concerned, I didn't have the academic resources at hand anymore. Like it had been, when I applied, it was 2017. So I had been out of undergrad for almost 5 years. Right. So reaching out to professors and stuff, they weren't going to remember my name or my face, especially since I went to a UC. My classroom sizes. I don't think that I had one class at UC Santa Cruz like I have here, which is just, 8, 9 kids tops. Whereas at UC Santa Cruz, we're talking about lecture halls of up to like 360, 370 people. Easily, yeah. So, as far as that's concerned, you guys really worked with me on getting my letters of recommendation from employment sources. Yeah, so, I went that route and, talked to my bosses and everything like that. They're really enthusiastic to back me and all that good stuff. So I guess it was just overcoming the hurdle of feeling like you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing, but in actuality you are. Yeah. It's just a mental block. So I guess I just had to get over that hump of feeling like I actually belonged here, even though I had not been in school for so long.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Jama, and I know you came from, overseas, obviously. Did you experience any admission challenges just from making that transition over here? Was it a pretty smooth process for you in regards to that?
At that time, I was out of school already. Right. And I was working for a company back home. That's why it was pretty challenging to find more time. Yeah. And I had to work at night to make sure I write my recommendation, to go to a neighboring country to take a GRE test. Wow. Those kind of things. So it was a little bit challenging in that sense. But in terms of getting the letters of recommendations, unlike Jordan, I went to a pretty small school, so everybody still remembers me, thank God. I also had to get some letters of recommendation from my previous employers in the States because I did an internship here. So that was a little bit challenging in terms of timing, different time zone. That's another challenge. Overall, admission stuff has been helpful. I remember it was the last deadline and you made sure you were staying there. You were there for me to support, and if I had any last minute questions, you were still responding pretty sharp. So that was very helpful. That was pretty smooth.
I want to just repeat again, I did not pay Jordan or Jama to say this about me. This was pretty organic. Any advice? Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on the admission process because we did touch on it a lot, but any advice for prospective students out there who are, in the process of applying right now, just from your standpoint, any advice for them? And that's an open question for anybody. And I guess we can start with Min since we...
Well, the best advice probably to get everything, get your recommendation letter together, apply as soon as you can, because along the way there's so many things that you need to do. Like say the GRE, you may have to retake it. For the most part, everything is so straightforward. Everything's on the website. And the best thing probably is the rolling admission. Yeah, rolling admission is probably the best thing that the school offer, because for a lot of school you have to get your recommendation letter by last year November. But now, because the school accept rolling admission, meaning that you can still submit your recommendation letter now, which is really, really nice for those who don't have time.
Yeah, you touched on a good point. Being that CGU is on a rolling admission, we really do try to work with the student through the different rounds of application reviews that we have. And we really just, because, a lot of people, may not hear about a CGU because we are a small institution, or maybe, life happens and their direction shifts, and now graduate school is now in the equation for them. So we really do try to work, with the student as much as we can. So you touched on a great point. Anybody else want to touch on this before we move on?
I mean, my comment is pretty general.
Yeah.
Make sure you're efficient with your time and
Yeah.
apply as soon as you can. Because
Absolutely.
I kind of applied later, but I don't recommend that because it gets more stressful. So make sure you give yourself more time to collect everything, to make sure you have right thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, that stress point is crucial, right? Where, especially for an international student, right? Because you mentioned before that
Right.
time zone, that time gap. I remember I would get the emails at like 3 a.m, but for me, it was like in the late afternoon. The earlier you start with this whole entire process,
Absolutely.
really, it is better for all parties. And, I know for, just a little plug here, I know a priority deadline has passed for those of you who are in attendance, who are still looking to apply. But like I said, with that rolling admission piece, it really does give you still plenty of time to apply, and just, reach out to your admission representation so we can work with you on that. I'm going to move on to the actual stuff within the division, right? What you guys are actually doing. So I want you all to kind of recall maybe your first interaction with a faculty member. I think Min mentioned how they can literally, if they don't have the answer to that question, they'll literally take you down the hallway and to another faculty member who may have that. Is there any interesting story of how you were able to, be assisted by a faculty member, maybe even mention the name, or just, even have a kind of a mentorship relationship with a certain faculty member within DPE? And I'll let anybody go for that.
For my program particularly, professors are generally, because the program is pretty small, you have a really good relationship with your professor,
Yeah.
and you work with them more like a friend rather than a professor. Because what I see is like me, international student myself, we put an over respect, the point that where you respect your professor to the point that you scared, to give, you know what I mean? There's sometimes that you not allow yourself to even give your point. And here in CGU, because everybody is so close to each other, you have like a friendship or mentorship, relationship in research, and that's really helped you to actually open up, and that's really nice.
Research is no joke, right? And
Yeah.
you have had your fair share of experiences with research within DPE. Did you find that to be more helpful, or did you find it to be, distracting, to throw you off almost, to know that you can have this relationship with your faculty members? Because at other schools and universities, especially the larger ones, you may not have those opportunities. So was that helpful for you?
Absolutely. So I have another friend from USC that he has trouble with connecting with the faculty, meaning that like because there are a lot of students in the program as well. So like the faculty doesn't necessarily know you as much as much as here.
Right.
Meaning that over here you have a direct relationship with your faculty, where they help you in every single way to help you to get to where you want to be at.
Excellent.
So yeah, like in research wise, in job markets or anything like that.
Jordan, I know you are getting your research going. Have you had any faculty assistance with this as of yet, or any guidance when it comes to the research at this point?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, I kind of got ambitious and went and talked to Professor Jean Shodell. She's one of the chairs of the politics program, actually, and expressed my interest in doing some research. And her answer the first time I asked her in the very beginning was, "You're not specialized enough. Come back and talk to me at the end of the semester." And so I spent last semester really focusing on my schoolwork. I did really well in all the classes and everything like that. Went and talked to her, and she's doing some key research on Native American voting rights.
That's right.
So, I started talking to her on that type of stuff, and I'm actually working on a final project for one of my classes that has to do with some of the stuff that she's working on regarding the Relocation Act for the Native Americans,
Yes, yeah.
and census data. So we're just kind of looking at whether or not the census is properly accounting for the Native Americans who have moved off the reservation.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now as far as that. And then I'm also working with Professor Javier Rodriguez, who is an awesome guy. Just love his class, and he's really enthusiastic about everything that he does, and really passionate too,
Absolutely.
which is something that I really aspire to be. And I'm working with him right now on compiling a data set for use in a study that he's doing on voter participation rates and the changing demographics in the United States.
Wow.
So I'm in the midst of compiling all of that data, and it is a lot of data. I'm having to go through a lot of different census stuff and times that the census wasn't digitized. So there's a lot of manual inputting, a lot of things like that. Right. It's taken me a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I'm working diligently on it. But yeah, I mean, just for instance on how like close you can get to these professors. So I had a class with Professor Shodell last semester, and I really loved that class. I went into her office hours a lot to talk to her about, different opportunities that I could do, get involved with. And now I'll be at an event every now and then, and she'll be at it like a Tuesday talk series on whatever the subject is. The last one that I went to, she shouted at me from across the lecture hall, told me to meet up with her after class because she may have some stuff that I could work on if I was busy. And so, just from that type of informal setting, I'm doing so much right now. So she's like, okay, we'll find someone else. Sure. But I mean, just the fact that she's now actually reaching out to me is something that I truly value about being here.
And Jordan, I want to go back to your point of the story where Dr. Shodell said, you're not specialized enough. Some people would, take that, and may not react the most positively, right? But I feel that, Dr. Shodell, her level of transparency with you off the back, not to break you down, but to build you up and to make you into this student who can conduct excellent research. I think that there's value within that. So how was your first initial reaction?
It wasn't, so the way that she had kind of framed it to me was totally in the fact of let's be realistic.
That's
here.
Right. Yeah.
And we were, it was during it was probably the 4th or 5th week of the semester. And she always does this with her classes where she has people come in and kind of go over how they're progressing through their work and everything like that and how they can improve on writing papers and things of that nature. And it was during that meeting with her that I kind of inquired as to research and stuff. And she just was frank and started asking me what I've done, what experience I have. And when I told her, she wasn't harsh at all. She was realistic and just said, look, you're in a statistics class right now. Let's get through it so you have some methodological foundations. And, when you're ready, which will probably be towards the end of the semester or the middle of the next, when you're actually, applying your knowledge and everything like that to larger based studies, which is what they're looking at, there's a place for you. She wasn't... She didn't, it wasn't a delivery of the opportunities not there. It's just, let's get you ready for it.
Right, exactly.
So it was more like a building up opportunity more so than it was a taking the wind out of my sails.
Right.
Yeah, not at all. I'd never get that feeling with her.
That's excellent. That's really good. And I'm glad that you were able to touch on that. And I know from my personal graduate education experience, sometimes I was led astray in terms of what classes to take. Maybe, I should have taken this class or I should have done this approach. So I think it's really refreshing that you had an experience where the faculty member was really, really upfront with you so that they can build you up. I think that's phenomenal. Yeah. Jama, I know that your experience is a little different because you're, just getting prepared for your research journey. But have you made any connections with the faculty to help you prepare for that?
For sure. I'll start out with my first connections with faculty. It happened even before school started. Okay. And I spoke with Dr. Kugler and Dr. Fung. They were extremely helpful in helping me out choosing the right courses because I made a course selection and I made changes 1,000 times later on. Sure. Because I wasn't, I guess I wasn't sure what I was doing. Right. But then the conversations, it was a lot helpful. So it was more of a mentoring relationship. Great. And it was pretty informal too. So it was very useful. Excellent. So in that sense. But regarding research, I'm still making up my mind because at this point, my first semester was mostly domain knowledge to get basically a general sense of my field through world politics, international political economy, courses like that. And my second semester is more methods. So I'm actually learning tools so I can actually build up my portfolio and make sure I have enough stuff to make sure I write a good research paper. Yes. And I'm still thinking about the topics. I'm not going to lie, I don't really know exactly, but I have a couple projects coming up and I want to make sure I actually try to do the same topic for each class and from a different perspective using different tools.
That's interesting.
So, because I'm in computational analytics and we're learning machine learning, which is really cool, and I'm excited to learn more about that stuff and apply it in my domain knowledge.
Excellent, excellent. I want to go. Somebody mentioned the events within DP or the Tuesday Talk series, right? Which is an excellent way to kind of get out, for current students and even prospective students who have come. I've invited to the Tuesday Talks to hear the different things that are going on within the division, and then folks who are connected with the division from the outside. Can anyone share maybe one of the Tuesday Talks that you guys attended, what maybe that was about, and what you were able to take away from that? One that maybe has stood out.
Yes, I've been to a couple.
Okay.
I went to Professor Schrodel's on Native American voting rights
Right.
over in the Dakotas.
Right.
So the Tuesday Talk series, that one that I did attend was with Professor Schrodel, but it's not limited to just professors at the Claremont colleges.
Right.
So what essentially happens is we go out and we find the leaders in the field of whatever research topic that's going to be discussed during the Tuesday Talk series. It's held during lunch hours, so it's always a really great place to kind of be. And they provide free lunch for you if you come, which is also a plus, especially when you're a grad student.
Absolutely.
So you got something to eat, and then you kind of just you walk in and you start to gain a knowledge about how to form research, how to start asking the right types of questions, and how to answer those questions without having a bias. So I mean, for Professor Schrodel's, she just really went through all of the different data that she had. She was really concise with explaining exactly what hurdles there were for Native Americans over the Dakotas, how far they had to travel to voting centers, polling places, things of that nature. And then there's a Q&A session, so that can be fielded by people who may agree or may not agree with the findings of the research, and they're enabled to then challenge, or understand more fully what's being presented to them. And it's just really a great opportunity to really sit there and kind of see what the whole research life is going to be like, what it's like to present in front of people, and then also, kind of gain more knowledge on the methods and, procedures behind doing proper research.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. And Dr. Schrodel's research is really changing lives.
Yeah.
It really is. And if you ever, for those of you who are listening, if you ever have the opportunity to go on YouTube, our CGU YouTube page, she does have a garden talk in which she explains what she's doing. I think it's really, really awesome what she's doing. I want to talk about the idea that when you get into the classroom, right, in a graduate school setting, it's not just being lectured at 100% of the time. There is a lot of collaboration. There are a lot of discussions and even debates, right? Talk to me a little bit about how you may have come into the classroom and within a certain subject and thought one thing, but you left that classroom thinking another, right? Were you challenged in the classroom? If that was, some of your colleagues within the classroom or the faculty members within the classroom, have you ever felt challenged, and what were your initial thoughts with that?
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to share.
Sure.
Actually, this is one of the classes I'm taking right now with Professor Abdulian.
Okay.
Data visualization class. And you would think of a typical lecture, so you just listen to a professor,
Right.
grad school type of thing,
Right.
you would think. But no, it's actually engagement. It's half of I would say 70% of the time you're being engaged in the conversation. And professor makes sure that you actually reply and you are fully engaged. It's not just a one-way
One-way streak, yeah.
Right,
that's
exactly.
yeah.
So, and you're challenged every single class, and he makes sure that we read everything because we're not basically there just to sit 3 hours. And as he says, we have to make sure that we get out everything out. We get the most out of the money that we're paying
That's
because
right,
we're doing
that's
it
right.
all for ourselves.
Absolutely.
So it's extremely engaging. There's we always come up to the board and do something. So it's not just sitting down and listening to a professor who lectures.
Yeah.
It's a totally different classroom setting, and you feel challenged every single class, which is amazing, which is really interesting. And the last thing he does at the end of every class, he has a rule to ask, what is a one thing you learned in the class today? So, and you actually think about it and you say, yes, this is what I learned today.
Yeah. Wow.
And you actually remember that.
Wow. Yeah, one of the benefits of going to a
Right.
smaller school, right, and being in a smaller learning environment is, you don't have the choice to, just sit back in the classroom and not be a participant. So
Right.
that's really cool. And the fact that, it seems like the student response was positive is really, really good. Man, what about you? What was your experience with that?
If you know, the research currently they shift completely from only author to collaboration. So right now, I'm taking one class called Economic Incubator. So what happened in the class is like everybody sit in, discuss, and they build a project together. So right now we're building a project on vegan. It's just simply like trying to shift people to eating healthier generally.
Okay.
But we focus more on like in veganisms and those things. But what happened in the class, like everybody sit in, everybody discuss and build the project together, and hopefully we're gonna get the project done by the summer. Meaning we're gonna get it published, and you're gonna get your own citation.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you think that you would have those opportunities when you first got into the program to have your work out there and for the public to view?
No, absolutely. So I came in. I thought to myself that everything I have to do, I have to do on my own.
Yeah.
Which is like completely, it's so hard.
Right.
Yeah. And now given this opportunity, I'm so thankful for this opportunity that everybody can work together and collaborate, because you get different perspective from different people, and that actually make you, more. I wouldn't say more intelligent in the sense like you're more open minded.
Yes. Yes. I think it's awesome that, and I think the same will be for all of you, that you could possibly leave this institution with tangible work that you can, people can view and people could discuss, and you're actually contributing to the field. So I think that's awesome.
I'd like to add a couple things.
For sure.
So actually, there are a lot of opportunities to get published
Yes.
and to attend different conferences.
Yes,
So a
yes.
couple of my classmates are actually participating in a conference this week, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. Maybe next year, as I get more tools and I actually identify the specific area of my research. So that's something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I think that's an excellent point, and going back to what you said earlier, you want to make the most out of this opportunity, right?
Sure.
The money that is spent, the time that is spent, the energy that is spent, you want to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want from this institution, the experience. Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm involved in the Inequality Research and Policy Lab. It's ran by Professor Melissa Rogers as well as Professor Javier Rodriguez. And that's kind of where I made the connection with Professor Rodriguez. And we are hosting a conference next week. I'm not presenting in it because I didn't feel confident in any of the work that I've done so far. I've only been here for a semester.
That's right.
But, we were being pushed already to submit abstracts for presentation at a conference, which would go directly onto our CV.
Right.
And as a first year's master's student, like I just don't know many universities where that's a possibility. Where you're working directly with the professors who are hosting a well-known conference, who are urging you to submit whatever you can to get in front of people to help you build your career.
That's right.
And I mean, and it wasn't just something that they brought up once. It was something that I was getting 3, 4, 5 emails a week for reminders. I really was trying to push myself into just doing it, but
Right.
again, I just
It wasn't the right time.
It wasn't
Yeah,
the right time
wasn't the
yet,
right
but but then also I know you had said that was there a time where you went into class thinking one way and then came out thinking a completely other
Right,
way.
right.
So on the flip side, since I'm in the politics program,
Yes.
there's a little bit more of a opinion, I guess, or ideals associated
Absolutely.
with politics. And the one thing that I really value about this program is that there's no tilt. It's really balanced. So I can go from one hour or one class in the morning with Professor Jean Chaudel, who does a little bit more on the equality side of things, the inclusivity side of things.
Right.
And then you can walk into a class with Professor Michael Ullman, who served in the Reagan White House.
Yes.
Was a special advisor to President Reagan.
Right.
Has Capitol Hill experience.
Right.
Knows the Attorney General on a
Yes.
first name basis. Talks about him in class all the time.
Yes.
So you're really getting kind of a two sides of the coin. So you can really kind of better form a foundation for moving forward in academia, and you really have a balance to your thinking and your methodology.
Yeah. Great points. Before we move on to the next topic, have any of you been able to do research prior to CGU, and did it help you with your current research that you're doing? And this is more so obviously for Min and Jordan. Was it helpful? Did you almost have to scrap everything that you've done in the past? and go ahead and start anew. And maybe what I'm referring to, maybe like a senior thesis, right? Was that what you learned on that stage? Did it help you in this new stage, being at CGU?
For me, so my senior thesis was about video games. And my advisor at that time was Quinn Kiefer, who is teaching econometrics for DP right now. Honestly, in my opinion, my case is a little bit different. While he was my advisor back in the day, and he's still my advisor now, with his teaching style and his research style, nothing has changed that much.
Wow.
But although I've learned so much more since I came here, because everything's catered to actual research, while in undergrad it's more of like you research, like you get to know the research, to build, for the future project or whatever. But now here, you absolutely have to put 100% in everything, and everything you learn is everything you need to do in your project.
So you definitely felt that, when you got here, even though you had research experience, you definitely had to step your game up, if you will.
Way much.
Yeah, excellent. Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, so my research experience in undergrad was more so, I was a psychology major. So I took a research methods class there. We did a survey that was done in class on our classmates. So, I mean, it wasn't exactly well-grounded, I guess, research, but it was just kind of introducing us to the experimental process, things of that nature. And then I did my senior thesis in developmental psychology, and it wasn't really research focused more than it was theoretical. So I mean, coming here, definitely I pushed myself into getting into this research that I'm currently doing now. And, it's definitely a challenge. It's not something that I've done before, but you're getting the opportunity to do it. Right. Whereas at a UC, you have to fight for a spot in a research lab as an undergrad, of course, and as a master's student as well. Unless you're in a PhD, a fully funded program, you're not going to have that one-on-one time with a professor. And even in those programs, sometimes your mentors aren't easily accessible, like any teacher is here, really. So, I mean, if your mentor isn't accessible here, you can literally go right next door to the chair of the department instead of the chair of the program, who will be able to at least attempt to answer your questions or point you in a direction of another professor that may be there.
Yes.
So you could just walk up and down the hall until you get your
question
answered. Yeah, you literally can just you can go find your answers. Right. You don't have to worry about having a professor email you, not being able to get in during office hours. That was a huge problem for me in undergrad. I worked while I was an undergrad as well, and my work schedule didn't coincide with office hours. The professors really just weren't accessible. Right. And here it's almost a night and day type of situation.
Excellent. I want to move on, and thank you for sharing your experiences. I'm pretty sure that was very helpful for a lot of the viewers who are currently watching. I want to talk about the balancing act. You guys are all graduate students. You guys have lives outside of the classroom. You guys have family, friends, loved ones. How do you do it, right? I know I just graduated from my MBA, and I could tell you that, my wife and I, she delivered a baby, during, I think, our second to last semester. And then, we got married and we got a house, and all throughout the time of the MBA program. And it was definitely a balancing act. What were your guys' experiences like when it came to balancing your personal obligations, those relationships you have with family, friends, and loved ones, and then also making sure that you deliver when it comes to assignments, going to events, research, all that good stuff? How did you guys do it? How are you doing it?
I would say it's a lot more different from undergrad, because in undergrad, you can procrastinate. You have this luxury of procrastination. Right. And in grad school, you can't, because knowledge is cumulative. You make sure you don't stretch out till the last moment. Yeah. So for sure. And concerning life, like personal life, I don't have like a family, so I guess I'm a student who is fully devoted to her studies. So that's why it's easier for me in that sense. So I actually have more time for schoolwork. And but on the other hand, I try to make sure that I do something else, like some activities with friends, and stay, like I like running, for example. So I do a couple of things at the same time, and it is pretty possible. So in order to be a full-time student, you need to be enrolled in at least 3 classes, which is 9 hours of classes a week plus TA sessions. So, but you get a lot of work outside of school, your homework. So that is something that you need to be considerate of. So you have to make sure you efficiently manage your time. So I think it's been working out pretty well. I think it's pretty doable, even if you have a job on the side or something. I think people still manage to do that.
Right.
So I was really freaked out in the beginning because I jumped straight from undergrad to a PhD.
That's right.
And I thought it would be something impossible, something really hard. But in truth, it's not just grad school is not something that is super hard. It actually starts from the basics. So no matter which background you're coming from, you'll still they'll make sure that you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So you start with the basics and then you gradually build up and become a true professional. So
Yeah, well said. Well said. I couldn't agree with you more. Min, what do you think?
Well, for balancing act, it's been really, really hard for the past 3 years. But I feel like in a way it makes myself a better person. That I have to organize my time more efficiently, and that one of those things that in undergrad you can't do that. You have so much time, you can do whatever you want, But now this is another point I want to touch on, is that like the school give you teaching assistantship or working as well, which is really nice. And now when you get to my third year in econ, now I'm teaching, I'm working, I'm going to school, I'm going to class. How can I balance all this? I need to go to the gyms as well. So it's all of this thing. Force yourself to actually manage your time very, very efficiently. So I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I get my gym at 8, go to school, have my lunch, teach until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and my rest of my day off, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So by, all of this forces, all of this schedule that is so overwhelmed, it doesn't make you really, it forces yourself to manage this much better, which is really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you actually realize that you're capable of doing so much more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You just had to do it.
So productive.
Yeah, you just do it, right?
Exactly.
You sometimes you freak out with, when you get that this course schedule and you realize that you have a full plate of classes and you have, still have to go to the gym, you still have to hang out with friends, you still have to be social, you can't just be under a rock throughout the whole semester. But like you guys said, you just do it and you continue to live your life and you get the work done, right?
Especially the first 2 years when
Right.
you have to study so much to pass a qualifying exam.
Yes.
But after that point, everything will be so much easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything is possible.
Yeah.
Very
yeah.
possible.
If you say so.
Jordan, what do you think?
Me and my calendar app on my phone have become best friends. So I mean, just time blocking, right? That's something that I learned. I didn't learn in undergrad. I mean, time management was something that was stressed in undergrad in some of my social circles. So like in my fraternity, that was something that we really tried to work on with like our members and everything like that, was time management. So you had time to get good grades and also time to put into philanthropy, fundraising, things of that nature. But I never really had to time manage like I do here. Balancing the 2 different research projects that I'm working on, as well as the 3 classes, the full load, TA sessions. And then I also, do some online marketing work and stuff that I have to balance out as well.
Right.
And I drive to Los Angeles every weekend because my girlfriend lives out there. So,
Good man. Good
so
man.
I'm just, it's just, I moved from being out there with her to she supported me going back to school, and I moved back out here, and I have family out here. So I got lucky enough with that. But, just really just being on top of yourself, managing your time and sticking to your schedule and getting into a routine.
Yeah.
Like you really just like, I time block everything from like studying to just extracurricular activities like going to the gym, or, just the only thing that I don't time block is drive time. Like everything other than that, you can go on my calendar, you'll see like I have 2-3 hours in between classes that I have studying for this or things of that nature. And it's just, you just figure it out.
Right.
It's not like there's no one equation for the balancing act, right? Like it's just, you figure out what works for you, you stick to it, and you make it happen.
Couldn't agree more. We're coming up on getting close to the end time, so I want to open it up to some questions that may have come in, if there are any. I'm looking at Gabby. Okay, it looks like we have one question, and if I can see it here right, it looks like if the panelists can share an experience of which it was, going through a challenging time and you still had to deliver. So is there a specific story that you guys have to share? I like I said, I'll kind of start with my own, right? Well, I can remember while my wife was delivering the baby, we had an assignment due the next day, and we were in the same class, right? So we're in the same program, same class, and I remember we almost had to, take breaks, right? So, when she was able to deliver the baby and she was doing a little bit better, had to do one piece of the assignment. She tends to the baby. I do one piece of the assignment, then, vice versa. And I remember it just being insane because we're actually taking care of a life. We've never done that before. And still having to make sure we get an A+ on this assignment because we weren't going to settle for anything less. And, we were able to pull it off, and we did indeed get that A. And so what about you all? What challenging time, specifically a challenging time that you guys went through? You still had to deliver the work. And of course, because you guys are who you are, you wanted to make sure that the work was of quality. Can you guys share a story like that?
I mean, it's a normal thing for graduates. Exactly. I was gonna say there are a lot of examples, but clearly recently I had an assignment due on Friday, and I think I started doing it in the beginning of the week, but I didn't realize the importance of or how much time it would take to do a second part of the assignment. So, when I actually started doing it, it was working with Stata. So since I got just familiarized with this program, I didn't realize it would take me a whole night to make sure I know all the codes and the codes work. So it took up the whole night basically, and I still delivered. I mean, you just got to do it.
Right.
Sometimes you don't have choice.
Right, indeed.
Yep.
You all?
For me, so here in DP, you can take a qualifying exam twice a year. One in the spring and one was summer. But for me, I took it over the spring, meaning that I have class at that time as well.
Oh boy!
So I have to do my homework. I have to prepare for my midterm. At the same time, I have to study for my qualifying exam, and those time was the hardest. I have about 2 or 3 weeks to study for my qualifying exam. At the same time, I need to do my homework and prepare for my first midterm. Those time I was at Starbucks constantly every night until it closed, and it's very 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 challenging. But in the end, when you deliver, you get the result, everything, you feel so good.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan, I know you're kind of new to the program, but have you experienced anything that has been challenging within your time here at CGU so far?
I mean, that affected my work. I mean, 2 weeks ago, right before spring break, we had midterm in my PP482 class, so my advanced qualitative research method or quantitative research methods course with Professor Rodriguez. And the week before, my car got totaled.
Oh, gosh,
so I was dealing with that, not having transportation, not knowing where liability's at, and having to run back and forth between car dealerships, getting my check, having to go find a car all at the same time as preparing for a midterm. That was tough, but I made it work. I mean,
yeah.
That's probably. I mean, it's nothing like having a baby during a final project. So,
listen, I think the theme of what everyone is saying is you just do it. You tackle the situations as they come. You manage your time, and you just get it done. So I respect all of you guys for sharing your personal experiences. One last question: what? With your programs down, the research that you're doing right now, one student is asking, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? What do you want to do when it's all said and done, and how do you believe that CGU is aiding you with that cause?
I'm still in the process. I think CGU is currently aiding me in this process,
Great.
and I'm trying to figure out. And I'm actually glad that I already figured out which concentrations I want to choose, the emphasis of my study, but I'm still in the process of finding myself.
Absolutely. And
it may take a while.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any pressure on any graduate student to know right now. I have no idea. For myself,
who I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, what do I want to do when I grow up, right? Yeah, and I think that a lot of folks who go through the program have the ability to reach back out to faculty members to, even still receive that mentorship to kind of help connect the dots even when it's all said and done. Min, what about you?
Right now I'm doing 2 projects. One vegan project with Professor Josh Tassoff, and another project about the Australian fund with Professor Capra. And obviously, it shaped me through times. So right now, the Australian pension fund is about we're trying to help women to invest more in their pension fund. Because what happened is in Australia, by the time you retire, you're getting poor because you don't have enough money in your pension fund. So we're building a project to help technically women to invest more in their pension fund. And this project alone shaped me in a completely different direction in my future. It's like, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. And without going to CGU, I don't necessarily know this is what I want to do back in the day, you know?
Wow.
And this shaped me to completely different direction. And I'm glad that I'm heading this direction right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jordan, very quickly, how do you think that this is helping?
So, I mean, I want to work in the political field. So, I mean, having the resources that we have here, I mean, one of the economics professors has worked in every Republican White House.
That's right.
Nixon, which we can talk about that. But yeah, I mean, just having the resources that we have here. I mean, we have people who have worked in Capitol Hill. We have people who are on really good speaking terms with political consultants that work directly with legislators, both at the state, local, or at all three levels, really, state, local, and federal. So, I mean, it's just, I'm not 100% sure what exactly I want to do yet, whether I want to work as a congressional staffer or possibly within the state government somewhere. You know, just having at my disposal the resources that I do to kind of help push me in the right direction, or at least give me some of the insight that they have, has really helped to kind of steer me in that direction. And I mean, I started as a policy major, and just having the conversations that I had with Professor Campbell, Professor Schrodel, and Professor Uhlman, it kind of just opened my eyes to, you know, like, what I want to do is politics. Why am I in policy right now? So,
Excellent.
I mean, if the program helped me kind of shift my focus just in that one little conversation, I only know what's ahead is going to be great. So,
Excellent. I want to thank all of our panelists for taking the time out within their busy schedules, as you heard earlier, and making time to kind of give back to, you know, to the admission office and to share their experience with you all, the viewers. So thank you once again, guys. Before everyone signs off, I just want to give a little gift from the admission office to you all, just an application fee waiver code. If you're thinking about applying, you can utilize this code. You can put it under the supplemental items tab when you first start your application. And the code is 19 CGU. That's once again the number 19 CGU. So if you guys, like I said, are on the fence, this could be kind of a great step for you all to apply. And please reach out to your admission representative in the program that you're interested in. We can certainly help you with that process. Thank you once again for everyone who's been involved, Anthony, Gabby, our panelists. And we're going to go ahead and sign off from CGU. Thank you guys for reviewing, and we'll catch you guys soon.